Hi, welcome to the Honey Pot Podcast. This is a space where we'll dive into holistic healing of the mind, body, and spirit. I'll cover topics from physical health to spiritual awakening and everything in between. This is a podcast for the modern seekers ready to dive deep to enjoy a healthier, happier life. So, without further ado, let's dive into this week's episode: Healing Our Body Through Our Mind. This is a topic I am extremely passionate about. And for years, I've been following the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza, Greg Braden, the Institute for Heart Math. And through all of that, I learned so much about the power that we have in our own minds to create our reality. And as I dove deeper into that, always, I've always been into the holistic side of healing. So I started to dive deeper into Joe Dispenza's work specifically, and I was fascinated with these stories of spontaneous healing and doing it in a completely natural way through breath work, through meditation. And I never imagined, as we never do, having to put this to the test myself. But about a decade ago, I was diagnosed with a very serious thyroid condition. And at the time, I was young, I was healthy, I was working as a trainer, a fitness trainer, and I was eating a really healthy diet. So it didn't really make sense to me when my body just started to feel like it was rebelling against me. And that's the best way I can describe it. I was starting to have symptoms that I'd never had before. I was having a lot of anxiety, but the anxiety felt very physical. It's hard to explain, but it was different than any kind of mental stress or anxiety I'd felt in the past. So it started there, and then I started noticing that my appetite was increasing. I was eating a lot more than usual, and I was also losing weight, which was a pretty scary thing because, being in the training industry, like I was very aware of where my body weight should be, the composition. So I knew something was going on. And when I finally went to the doctor to look into it, I really just thought I was going into that appointment to talk about anxiety, maybe, get something if I need it for a little while, or maybe I needed to go talk to a counselor. And, I didn't really think that something major was wrong. But I got kind of blindsided that day. When I got to the doctor's office, the doctor checked my heart rate and she got a really concerned look on her face. And I had been sitting in the office at this point for like an hour waiting on my appointment. And my resting heart rate was 155, which is really high. And she looked at me and she said, "Did you just climb a flight of stairs to get here?" Like just looking for any reason for my heart rate to be up that high. And I said, "No." And within the next 10 minutes, it was just like this whirlwind. I was in a wheelchair. They took me to the nearest emergency room, and I spent the next day and a half in the emergency room, very scared, with tons of tests run on me, multiple EKGs, before they finally found out that I had a thyroid condition, and they diagnosed me with Graves' disease. So at the time, I didn't even know what that was. I'd heard about like hypothyroidism, and that's pretty common where people feel a little sluggish. Actually, a big majority of the population has that. But this was hyperthyroidism. And this tends to be more dangerous because of the acceleration of the heart rate. She said if I had waited much longer, I would have easily had a heart attack. She actually didn't know how I had not had a heart attack already in a workout. And I know that, I got saved there. I was protected because my body had just completely gone haywire. Like everything inside me, it felt like an overrun engine, just overheating, just with me sitting still. I wasn't sleeping. I couldn't keep my calories in, like nothing was working properly at this point. So it was a really scary experience. And I got sent to one of the best endocrinologists in Atlanta. And that was a few days after the ER. And in my first appointment, this doctor looked at me and, without even asking me many questions, getting to know me, just said, "We're going to have to remove your thyroid. And I just want you to read this information." She gave me a website. And this was, I think, around Thanksgiving. And she said, "Let's go ahead and try to get you scheduled for your surgery the first of the year." And that was all. She walked out. And my parents were there with me. And I looked at them and I was like, what? Like we couldn't figure out what just happened. And if you know much about the thyroid, that's what is helping all of your hormones in your body. For especially for a female to have your thyroid removed, that is a major surgery for many reasons. But one of them being, you're going to have to be on synthetic thyroid the rest of your life, and there's not that many options, or at least weren't at the time. So if you didn't work well with one of those medications, or you had side effects, you literally were stuck with that your entire life. And to me, that just wasn't an option. So I'm really glad that I had the faith in my parents, and just the way I was raised, in a very organic, holistic lifestyle kind of family, that really helped me in this place, because I know a lot of people who have been in a position like this and they just don't question it and they go right in and have the surgery, and then they're stuck with whatever outcome it is. And so before I go further, I do want to say I'm not at all knocking Western medicine. In fact, if it had not been for the medicine I was on for a while after that, I might not be here right now. And I really needed that. I needed the beta blockers, I needed the thyroid medicine. But in my mind, that was never a long-term solution. For me, that was, just getting my body back into homeostasis to relieve those symptoms and get me to a safe place to where I could figure out what the root cause was and change that in my lifestyle or in my diet, whatever it was that I needed to do. So that's where this journey for me really began. And after that, I'll just kind of skim over the next 2 years. I did not continue going to that doctor. I went to two more. And on the third one, I found someone who was willing to let me keep my thyroid. And he wasn't into all the, you know, holistic stuff or the hippy dippy stuff that I was bringing up, but he was very okay with me just, taking medicine. And in his mind, he was like, you can just take this medicine forever. There's no long term side effects that we know of. And that was that. But meanwhile, as I was on this medicine, I was having terrible side effects. The beta blocker they gave me to slow my heart rate down was giving me migraines. So then to ease that, they wanted to give me painkillers, which I obviously couldn't take or function on and work on. So I was just stuck with this migraine every single day at the same time of day for several hours after taking the medication. I would just be out of commission. So you can imagine that on top of your hormones being in utter chaos and like this thyroid storm. It was a really, really challenging time. But I interviewed people, that had had the surgery and who hadn't. I researched. I had a spreadsheet where I tracked all of my medicine dosage, my symptoms, my side effects. And I compared that with all the other stories that I was reading. And so I got really familiar with my condition outside of what the doctor was telling me, because there was so many more things, so many more components to that. And I learned at that moment that we have to be our own health advocate. And so, yeah, I just had to preface by saying that, like, this is not at all to knock Western medicine. I think it's very important. It can do a lot of good. However, especially if you're dealing with some spontaneous thing that's happened in your body or autoimmune disease, there's generally something that triggered it, or there's something in your lifestyle that could have made this happen. So my goal was, I gave myself 2 years, and I was like, all right, I'm going through hell on this medication with the side effects, but I want to give myself 2 solid years to study, to research, to change anything in my lifestyle that I can to get better. And then at the end of that 2 years, if I'm still not okay, then I'll reconsider this thyroid surgery. So that's what I did. And, it was a wild journey, because there were so many ups and downs and moments where I literally felt like I had just had no hope. Like my social life was affected, my work was affected. I could not get a grip on my emotions for sometimes months at a time. And I really felt pretty hopeless. I got to that place of despair where it was like, I could go either way right now. And I know so many people who have been in this place, or are currently in this place or might experience this in the future. And so this episode is all about giving hope, but also giving proof. And so I'll fast forward a little bit in my story. I started, as I said before, I was really healthy in my diet, but in my research, I found, a lot of information on anti-inflammatory foods and supplements and essential oils and all of these things that could reduce inflammation in the body. So I immediately took gluten and dairy and alcohol out of my diet. I started upping certain vegetables in my diet that would help balance hormones and thyroid production. I used essential oils like frankincense on my throat every day it's basically acting as an adaptogen and a balancer of the hormones. And I started meditating. I started yoga at that point. There wasn't really much I could do, but very Zen style yin yoga because I wasn't able to do anything that was going to get my heart rate up, which, at the time was really hard. Of course, being a trainer too, training classes all day and not being able to even do the warm up with them. So I really had to just reconstruct how I saw things. And if you've ever been in fast forward and life forces you to slow down, you understand how challenging that can be. But through that, I started to dive deeper into myself, and I realized that there were a lot of things that I had suppressed over the years. And I guess I maybe, kind of knew this to some degree, but I had always been too scared to dive into it. I thought just, time heals all, why go back into all that, just never really crossed my mind that the suppressed energy in my body, that could be the culprit. That could have been the start of what happened. And so I'm not going to get too deep into that, but I did a lot of work with my throat chakra. For a long time, for a lot of my life, I felt unable to speak my truth, or I was chastised for it. I wasn't able to question things, in church and the way I was raised. So I realized later on, down this journey that had really affected me in a big way. And that was basically just blocking my throat chakra. And of course, the thyroid sits right there in the throat. So to come up to the end of this journey, the 2 years, I started feeling a lot better. I was taking my dosage of medicine down. At this point, I had been deep into the diet and all these things. And so I started just barely taking a little bit out month by month. I would make that pill a little bit smaller. I would take a little bit less. And I started recording it on my own because I'd only see my doctor every 4 to 6 weeks. And that was by design because they believed that, your levels can't really change that much between them. And so in that meantime, I would order my own blood work. So if I was feeling a little off, I would go order it. I'd go to a lab. I'd get the results. I would check it with my lab work with the doctor from 2 weeks ago. And I would see, is this feeling in my body like my heart rate speeding up again? Is that my thyroid level getting higher or lower? And so then I would just adjust based on that. And I did that for about 6 months until one day I had been doing really great with the doctor's visits. So I think at this point it had been like 2 months since I saw my doctor. And I went in and I had taken myself completely off the medicine. Like I had weaned it very slowly, researched how to do it, but my doctor didn't know at that point. So I go in there and I'm just feeling really excited, really happy, like waiting for good news. And they take my blood work and he comes back in the room and he said, well, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Levels look great. So I'm just going to give you the same prescription. And I looked at him and I said, I'm actually not on it anymore. And that really got his attention. He was like, what do you mean? You can't just stop the medicine. That's dangerous. I said, I haven't. And I showed him the printout of all the blood work that I had ordered on my own, how I had tracked my results, how I had lowered my dosage, how I got from point A to point B. And he didn't really have anything to say. Like he was extremely excited for me, but you could tell the look on his face was just like shock. He did not think that was possible. He actually told me, as well as a few other endocrinologists that I had seen before that, had told me I would never go into remission for this, that it was too far gone. Like I caught it too late. I was in a thyroid storm, which meant this was going to be something I struggled with my whole life unless I just got it removed. And I was so happy walking out of the doctor's office that day. And to this day, that's been a decade ago, I have not been on any kind of medication. And I've stayed gluten-free. I've stayed healthy in every way. Like all those changes I made those lifestyle changes. But to go a little deeper into that, that it really required me being on board in my mind and believing that that was possible. Because all it took was a Google search to see what most people's experience was with that disease, or to see what the recommendation was, or to see all these terrible stories. That's usually what comes up first. And I did that. I went down that route and got completely terrified. But then I had to find my way back to my belief and knowing that we have the capability to heal ourselves, that our bodies are so incredibly intuitive that they know what to do. That doesn't mean that we don't need medicine sometimes, because we do, or treatment of some kind. But at the end of the day, I am a big believer, as Joe Dispenza talks about, as our mind, or our subconscious mind being our body. So all the thoughts that we think really actually create what's going on in our body. And so that might be a lot to digest if that's not something that you have really thought about before. But think about it this way. A lot of athletes, pro athletes, will do visualizations before they go out to a game or a match or a meet, because they envision themselves doing every step against their opponent to win. They go through that whole process, and then they feel the emotions of winning, and they walk into that game, or whatever it is they're going into. They walk into that with this knowing, with this belief that they're going to do their best. And that can play out in so many different ways in our life. When I used to be a competitive power lifter, I remember maxing out at a competition by 20 pounds. And I'd already I was really happy with my max before that for a clean and jerk. But I told the judge, I was like, don't tell me what the numbers are. So when you're putting the plates on the bar, please don't tell me, because I was so stuck in my mind on this one number. I was like, I cannot clean and jerk more than 155 pounds. And that's the most I had done. I'd barely gotten it. And so he said, okay, I can do that. So we go through and I get out to my last one, and I maxed out without failing at 175, 20 pounds more. And he told me, he's like, you could have done more. You didn't even get under it enough. But all that to say, my mind had stopped me for months in the gym at 155. But all it took was not knowing what it was and believing that each rep I go up to, I'm going to make this. And I made it to the top of that ladder, 175. So there's so much power behind what we believe, what we envision, what we feel. So I just want to give hope to anyone out there who is dealing with a challenging health situation. I know how scary it can be, and you're probably feeling absolutely bombarded with everybody's opinion, from what you're reading to what your doctors are saying to what your friends or family are saying. And I've been there. I know that can be really overwhelming, but it's really important to just take the time you need to process and to feel grounded every single day. And I would suggest doing that as a morning practice. But get yourself into a grounded place where you're in your body and you're just very in the present moment. And take a few minutes to close your eyes, go into your imagination, and see every little detail of your healing happening in your body. You can even imagine this white light coming down from heaven and moving through your body as it slowly heals any imbalances, any disease, anything going on in the body. And you will be amazed with just even immediately the sense of peace that comes with that. And of course, that's not everything. We do have to, sometimes change our lifestyle or just be really careful with how we're treating our body. There's a lot of factors that go into healing, but for what I'm talking about today, I just really want to get the point across that what we believe is so important. If you don't believe that you're going to get well or that you have the ability to heal, then you probably won't. And it's going to make it a lot harder to, maybe, but it's going to make it a lot harder for your body to heal. But if you have the belief that you will heal, that you will live a long and healthy life, then that possibility opens up to you. And so you start to work, your mind starts to work every day in thoughts that are in alignment with that belief. You start to make all of your choices with that awareness in the background, and you see yourself healthy and strong. And this is just, it's such a powerful tool. And so I want to encourage anyone out there, doesn't have to just be for yourself either. If it's for a loved one or a friend, someone else in your life that is going through some health problems, this is something that you can do for them too. This can be a practice that you do daily with your prayers or meditation. And just imagine them being filled with love and positivity and healing energy, and see them throughout their day enjoying it, being happy, feeling healthy, feeling energetic. And that can help them too. So I'm really passionate about this. Like I said, I could talk for hours, but I hope you did enjoy this. I hope there was some kind of takeaway from this that gives you just an empowerment for anything that you face in the future or anything you're facing currently. Just know that you do have that power within you. And as long as you believe it, that is the most important thing. Believe it, feel it, and experience it.